Pass with Jack Ebling. Mid-Michigan's spirited sports debate. It's time for Sports Talk with Jack and the panel, including Mike Griffith of MLive, Tom Crawford, co-founder of BitterRivals.com, Graham Couch, Lansing State Journal sports columnist, Rico Beard, radio host for Detroit Sports 105.1, Joe Rexroad, Detroit Free Press sports writer, and Doug Warren, audio producer. Now let's get talking sports. Here's Jack.
Great evening, Mid-Michigan and beyond, and welcome to Press Pass All-Stars on Fox 47. It is week 102, and we are joined tonight by Joe Rexroad, covers Michigan State for the Detroit Free Press, and he is our Monday co-host, The Drive with Jack Ebling on the team, 92.1 FM. You're home for We Are There Sports Radio. Hey, Joe.
Hey, Jack. I just want you and I to get out of the way. I'm excited for this show. I'm excited for this show.
We say We Are There Sports Radio, and we had 12 members of the team, 92.1 FM, in Waldo Stadium.
Sweaty members.
No air conditioning at Waldo?
We had the windows cranked wide open, but actually watched the second half from the field.
I wasn't good enough there. I got kicked down to the field.
I want to welcome Rico Beard. He is the co-host of the Ryan and Rico Show, Detroit Sports 105.1 FM, and he is our Thursday co-host on The Drive with Jack on the team 92.1. Hello, Rico.
Hey, do people still remember me?
Welcome back.
I was on punishment for 4 weeks, and I upset Jack again, and I'll be on punishment for another 2 weeks. So sorry.
If Joey Bosa can get suspended, we can go a week or two without him.
But we won't know what Rico did, though. That's
a secret. And Tom Crawford.
I talked about Tom.
My longtime radio partner, Bluebelly Tom. He is our Friday co-host, back to Fridays, for The Drive on the Team 92.1, broadcasting live each week from the Bluegill Grill. Hello, Tom.
great to be here, Jack.
And the man behind the glass, Doug Warren. He is producer of The Drive, and he is our Detroit Lions historian. Hello, Doug.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Hey, when we talk next week, the Lions will have opened their season in San Diego, and you're telling people move on to the next home game.
Yeah, they're going to win, but I still want to call out Sports Illustrated. They said the Lions are going to start 0-4 and finish 6-10. That's a bunch of manure. They're going to finish 2-2, and they're going to get the home opener. They're going to get the victory against Denver.
But you think it's a long shot for them to beat the Chargers in San Diego?
Yeah, they never play well in San Diego.
Yeah, so there's some other long shots, like Temple Owls against Penn State.
Bad loss.
Something that hadn't happened in 74 years. Since 1941, right?
Two-man sack. A two-man rush and a sack of Christian Hackenberg.
Can we finally admit that Penn State's not that good?
Sackenberg.
I think we saw that.
Oh, James Franklin's going to turn this.
Oh, yeah.
They stink.
Here we go.
Yeah.
We'll get to that
Save
in just
your
a
venom
minute.
for Harbaugh, man.
We're going to start with Michigan State and the 13-point win in Waldo Stadium. We'll be right back. With our Going Green segment, it's Press Pass All-Stars here on Fox 47. Welcome back to Press Pass All-Stars here on Fox 47. Time for our Going Green segment, brought to you by Graf Chevrolet, a trusted friend with 101 years in the automobile business. Stop and see Matt, Mark, and Greg on West Grand River and Okemos. They'll take great care of you, as they have in all 5 of my leases and purchases. Go green, go Graf. Gentlemen, got off to a tough start for Michigan State in terms of kickoff returns. And here's the second one after a 70-yarder. Darius Phillips turns the corner, and he is gone.
Look at PJ.
100 yards. And I thought Demetrius Cox had him there. But
Playing
not much
touch
of an
football
effort.
on that play. Demetrius Cox played touch football. Guys didn't stay in their lanes.
But I'm like Tom. I'm more impressed with PJ Fleck.
Oh, man. That guy's
He kept up for about 20 yards.
Yeah.
He's probably a 4.5, 4.6 guy, don't you think?
Yeah, for 20 yards.
He's supposed to get a head coaching job. Maybe he can be a player coach. Looked like he had
There
that
you
speed.
go.
He was in the NFL just a few years ago.
Yeah, that's true. And he's young, very young.
What was it about Michigan State that was impressive, that was a positive the other night, Joe?
Well, I think two things to me. We knew the trenches would be good and that they would win at the line of scrimmage this game. So that means very little to me. Two things. Viante Copeland, for one, I think they found a cornerback. Now, look, he's going to have his moments. He'll get beat the way they play on defense, but he plays physical football, and I thought he looked really good. He played perfect technique on the last interception. He looks confident out there. And then the running backs, I think you see, I don't know where it's going to go, but they're going to have a good option carrying the ball. They've
And
got
that
depth there.
interception you mentioned, he looked just like Darqueze Dennard in that pick against Michigan.
Yep.
The corner of the end zone looked like the same way he played that play. What impressed you, Rico?
What impressed me was the running game, the fact that they were able to establish the line. And even though it was Western Michigan, Western's a good team. I'm not saying they're the greatest, but Western's going to battle for the MAC. And they dominated the offensive and defensive line. The game was never in doubt. I think that in the second and third quarter, you saw the second and third strings come in, but I really like the way they did the run game and Viante Copeland. And I like Demetrius Cox, too. Those two, I think Michigan State has their starting corners. The other guys, not so much.
Tom, how big a concern should it be that a Western Michigan team without the team speed of Oregon, obviously, at the 2 long kickoff returns and basically had its way through the air in the second half?
Well, the special team play, obviously, the kickoff return, that's something they got to clean up. I mean, and a lot of teams run into that, but I'll go back to Joe. I like the surge that Michigan State had on both sides of the ball, but Copeland, as good as he did, Joe, there's some great things he did, but also some mistakes that he did. But they'll get that taken care of. But I thought Michigan State lacked focus in the third quarter, and there were first stringers in there. Rico. I mean, they didn't substitute every third string in there.
I'm looking at 36 and 39. That lets me know that Copeland and Cox were on the sideline. So when Edmondson and Arjun Calhoun were in the game, they got beat, especially that third down when they threw it 50 yards down the field. That was, I believe, that was
Edmondson. You know what, though? Edmondson didn't have terrible coverage on that play.
No.
That was a pro receiver with a perfect throw. So you have to, you could take Michigan State's cornerbacks and you could make a low-light tape of Darqueze Dennard, Trey Wayne. The way they play defense, they are exposed so often.
I'm glad you mentioned that pro receiver because I thought Corey Davis, who had a big game against Darqueze Dennard 2 years ago, would be the best receiver in the Big Ten. From what I saw watching him at field level, and there were a lot of scouts down there, too, watching him. He is the real deal. He looked like a bigger Antonio Brown, a guy who you fell in love with.
Yeah, I mean, when the Central came to Michigan State and they lost, and I'm like, guys, that wide receiver for Central is pretty good. And people are like, you're just making excuses. I'm like, no, he really was good. And it turns out it was Antonio Brown who was really good.
The MAC turns out NFL players. Their teams aren't as good top to bottom, but they're always good guys.
But before you give Western the MAC crown, let's see how the season plays out a little bit. But this is what we always do. We jump at, hey, they lost. Michigan lost to Utah. Man, Utah, that's not that good a team. What if they win the Pac-12? I know that, but I mean, you can't evaluate any of these games.
Here's the
any
thing
of them. Week number one.
Here's what I saw. I've watched the game twice now. Rewatched it. The offense didn't line up in the same formation twice for like the first half. They came out. And
Which offense?
The Michigan State offense.
Okay.
They were just experimenting. They were trying out new things. They played 55 players. This was your warm-up game, knowing that Oregon, you got to rein in the roster. You're not going to play as many people.
That said, Rico, I thought the energy, the intensity was alarmingly lacking late.
Yes.
That's a little tongue
Yes.
twister.
It reminded me of the Nebraska game where you turned off the motor and you couldn't get it back on. And if Copeland had not intercepted that ball, if that had been a touchdown pass, they would have had an onside kick for a chance to pull
with
a
Central 6-point
Michigan
game. That's a ball game right there.
Let's talk about the running back situation because all three guys had their moments. How would you judge it, Joe? Did some stand out to you?
Well, the two, I think London and Scott stood out.
I thought Holmes looked good.
Holmes looked good, too. You got to remember, London had a 56-yard TD run out. It was wide open for him, but, a misalignment by McGarrett King wipes that out. But Scott, probably the most impressive drive in the fourth quarter in a key moment. They go to him, and, a couple of those runs you can see.
And why was he in there? That's a funny story.
Yes.
Well, later he was in there because of the subbing issue. That was actually his drive on the better drive he had.
Right.
And
he carried it 6 straight times, the freshman. That says a lot.
Yeah.
To me, he was the best back they had. I thought London was good, very good. I thought Holmes was solid. But to me, L.J. Scott, again, he looked special. He looked like the kind of guy who someday you're going to see him in New York.
I went London. Give him his 60 yards. He's got a better.
We will be back in just a minute. We're going to talk about University of Michigan. Out of the Blue, up next.
A lot of good things to build on, things to grow from in a lot of areas, and already thinking about them and already getting ready to attack them. And the offensive line's a good example. I mean, a lot of good things, especially after the first half, where we got our running game going. That was good to see.
Welcome back. It is Press Pass All-Stars here on Fox 47. There you see Michigan coach Jim Harbaugh. Surprisingly even keel, but that's pretty much the way he has been. Tom Crawford, how do you evaluate week one in the Harbaugh era?
Well, he's an even keel guy. I think the only thing, a couple things I disagree with right out of the chute as far as the offensive line. They pass protected pretty well, but I tell you what, they have got to find some creases for those backs because there was still nothing there. Overall, I thought Michigan, when you think about Utah, they were led the country last year in sacks, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a good thing. And then Michigan on defense, the D-line, they got 8 or 9 sacks, which is different for Michigan. But, Rudock missed an opportunity. Jehu Chesson, wide open. Yeah. He ran a wheel route, as good a wheel route as I've seen from that program in a long time. He had 10 yards of sep, and he overthrew it. That was costly. But Jake Butt came in there and played well. Some positives, I know the naysayers will say, hey, it's the same old crap. Here we go again. But I still think Michigan's looking good, and I'm sticking with my 10-2 record.
Okay.
I lost this one, but they're going to make up for it at Happy Valley.
I want to go back to this offensive line situation because I was surprised that Jake Rudock did not get sacked. And Devin Gardner had to be looking at this saying, where was this a year ago? Yeah. But they get to that 4th and 1 situation. I don't know who Kyle Kalis thought he was blocking, but all he did was get in the way of the running back.
Right. That was a mistake, and some local media just jumped on Kyle Kalis like, he's the worst player in the history of the world, but that's another thing. But this line will come along, but run blocking, that's, Tim Drevno's got his work cut out for him because that's you got to run the football. We saw this Wisconsin and Alabama. When you can't run the football and you're one-dimensional, you got no shot at beating high-quality teams.
Joe Rexrode, is Jake Rudock the answer for this Wolverine team?
Well, he's the best answer, and that's why I picked him to win 7 games. I liked the defense. I liked the back 7. I thought Peppers and Lewis looked really athletic. I liked Jake Butt and Darbo. And I think they have some good options at running back. But Jake Rudock is the backup quarterback at Iowa, and you saw why in the opener. He just doesn't – he's not accurate enough when you need him to be. And then he throws he threw 3, but a couple really bad ones. I know one time there was a miscommunication with the receiver.
Grant Perry ran 2 bad routes.
Ran a bad route.
Joe, I thought he didn't throw picks. He was so good. He never throws
I never understood that.
When you have a receiver that sits when he's supposed to do an out, that's how turnovers happen.
Miscommunication with Grant Perry on 2 of those passes.
Absolutely. Right? He's a great blocker. That's why he's in there.
He still doesn't make anything happen. And, Tom, this is what Jerry DiNardo said after the game. I thought he absolutely nailed it. He said, when you have a team that doesn't run the option, they don't run the spread, and they don't have a mobile quarterback, you better have a really good offensive line.
Yeah, I understand. Because when you watch Michigan, I'm looking at him, I'm saying, I'm looking at Stanford. Yeah. But I don't have Toby Gerhart running the football. That's another part.
Actually, Michigan looked a lot better than Stanford did yesterday.
Well, I'm not talking about yesterday's or Saturday's Stanford. I'm talking about the Harbaugh Stanford.
Yeah, and I think there are things to be encouraged about with this team. But yeah, it's like with Rudock, I thought the last drive was nice, a good 2 minute. I almost think they should run tempo a little more often to get things going. But Jim Harbaugh wants to do those Stanford things, right?
Wants to play a fullback. So, he wants to be Stanford.
Brady Hoke came in and said, I got Denard Robinson. I got to win now. Let's do what we have. You want to adjust your players, but I think Harbaugh's probably going to be a little more long term with this and say we've got to get our offensive line doing what they need to do.
This looks like a 6-6 team. They're exactly what they are.
I don't
Jake
think
Rudock
so.
is exactly what he's captain check down. He'll just throw the short passes. That's why he missed on so many long passes. He's accurate within 15 yards.
He tried.
He used to be an underthrower at Iowa. He overthrew me.
They were
Maybe it was a Mountain Air. Was that it? Is that why he overthrew him?
No, actually.
I think Utah played in the same Mountain Air. They can't run the ball. This team is what it is.
What has to happen for this team to win 10 games, as some, Tom Crawford, expect that they could? Joe, what has to happen?
An incredible slew of injuries across the Big Ten.
PDs.
Oh, my God.
You're not winning 10 games,
Get
man.
out of here.
Next week, Oregon State. Now they get 3 in a row at home. They should be 3-1.
They will beat
BYU conference play. We'll be right back in just a minute talking about the Big Ten on Press Pass All-Star.
Three-man rush. Mangum, all kinds of time. Steps into the throw, in the wind, down to the goal line, and caught! Touchdown, BYU! Mitch Matthews on the last play of the game.
There you see Tanner Mangum to Mitch Matthews, that game-winning touchdown, the Hail Mary. And Sean McDonough, Chris Spielman seemed surprised, but no more surprised than Bronco Mendenhall. I think he's still running around the field.
Hey, Jack, did you hear the first 3 words in that clip? 3-man rush.
Yeah.
3-man rush. I go back
That
to...
never works. That's like
I go
not
back to
guarding the
1994,
inbound
the
guy
Hail
when you have
Mary
to
in
throw
Ann
the
Arbor,
94
3-man rush.
Yeah.
Doesn't work. That's how you get
But
beat.
that means 8 men back? You've outnumbered the people. You should knock it down.
It
Doesn't matter. You give
They
them all
just
the
get
time in
each
the world,
other's
then it
way.
becomes
You have
luck.
to.
You got a 6'6" receiver.
And they didn't hold the edge. So the guy's out there throwing a javelin. That's how you get beat. Throw a
Just
javelin.
like the
you
Doug Flutie play.
Same
Same
thing.
thing.
Always comes back to Michigan.
All right. What was a bigger
get...
shot?
Damn right, Rico.
What was a bigger surprise yesterday? Was it Northwestern's convincing win, 16-6, over number 21 Stanford? Was it the game you just saw and Nebraska finally losing an opener? Or was it 27 unanswered points for Temple in the first win over Penn State in that series since 1941, Joe?
Woo, I'm going to go with Northwestern. First of all, I love the hug of the official and the Hail Mary. And Penn State Temple, that's a stunning result. But watch that whole Northwestern-Stanford game, and so impressed with the Northwestern defense. Where did that come from? I'd like to know what's going on with Stanford, but with a fifth-year quarterback, Kevin Hogan, there's no excuse to play like that. I tell you what, I like Clayton Thorson a lot for Northwestern, and they might be that surprise team out of the West. The rest of the West looks pretty vulnerable right now.
You know who else looked really good yesterday? C.J. Beathard. Tom, what was more surprising to you of those 3 games?
Well, Temple beating Penn State because, Temple is Temple. Now, I don't know too deeps on Temple, the Owls, or anything about them, but, there's no reason Penn State should lose to Temple. And they got blitzed by double digits, like 27-10. That shocked me. I thought Penn State was in position. And I'm going to go with Joe. Thing about what you said about Northwestern is Pat Fitzgerald was disappointed with his team's performance after the game. When I listened to him on Satellite Radio today, it was the same thing. He's got a lot of things to fix. Shows you the potential of the Wildcats in 2015.
Rico, if someone had said that, and when it's 10-0 Penn State, the Temple was going to beat them by 17 points, I would have ordered an immediate sobriety test. But I figured they had a chance to win the way Illinois did, and in light of everything that happened to the Illini in the past week or so, that was a pretty good performance too.
It was. I kind of gave up. I didn't think that the Illini would actually show up because there was just so much stuff going on. But credit to their coach for rallying the guys and getting them to kind of focus and just play football. But for Penn State, I think you're seeing a lot of the suspensions and the punishment. That's starting to kick in. A lot of inexperienced out there. And Christian Hackenberg and James Franklin are still not on the same page. They are not. And he's going to ruin Hackenberg's career. And until – he would be better off just putting another quarterback in. And I know college football would be like, oh, my God, how can you bench Christian Hackenberg? But Penn State's not going to win with him in
Hackenberg's
there.
feet do not move.
Who is recruiting and coaching offensive linemen at Penn State? It's atrocious, Joe.
It's amazing, and we figured there'd be a big gain. That was all the talk in the offseason was this line's going to be much better. They have a great defensive line. They should have a good defense this year. And it was all the talk of bigger, stronger, gelling, all this stuff, and talk about falling flat on your face in the opener.
Nah, it's exactly what I thought that Penn State was going to get, and these are the sanctions.
And let's qualify this Illinois win. Kent State could be pretty horrible.
Let me give you a team that I didn't think was going to be horrible. In fact, I thought it was upset alert, a lot of people were saying, and that was Iowa and Illinois State. And Illinois State was the FCS runner-up last year. A lot of people said, hey, look out, and Iowa completely dismantled.
Yeah, that's a very promising sign because Iowa, early in the season, a lot of times you'll have enough. Now, Iowa State, let's wait and hold off and see what happens there. But I think that is encouraging. I think you saw a little bit of why their quarterback is who he is, right?
It's encouraging when you beat an FCS team. You're excited about that. I mean,
that's
shows
the best in the country. There have been Big Ten teams that couldn't do that,
gone.
Tom.
Let's be real.
I remember a pretty good Big Ten team that couldn't get that done in 2007.
Also encouraging.
Let's have a moment of silence for that.
It's always encouraging when you go to the Mountain Air and you almost lose. That's always encouraging, too.
What about Wisconsin, Rico? They kept it close for a quarter, and after that, they were no match for Alabama.
No, and anybody who thought Wisconsin was going to win this game should be drug tested. Alabama is that much better. Wisconsin is still Wisconsin. They're one-dimensional. They can grind it out, but they can't hang with Alabama.
But they couldn't grind it
They
out
couldn't grind.
yesterday.
That was a problem.
Right.
They had to go through the air.
One-dimensional, and if you
Right.
can't run the ball and you're Wisconsin,
This team cannot
you're
run
in
the
trouble.
ball. Other teams have.
They'll
in the past,
run
Wisconsin.
against teams not named in Alabama, but the kicker really hurt. I think that field goal late in the first half to make it 14-10.
Derrick Henry, as we see on the screen, is a beast.
I think he just
Pretty
scored
good.
again.
Wisconsin had a couple of their best offensive linemen out, too. That didn't help.
That
We
wouldn't
saw Purdue today go down. Thought they were in good
was
position
bad
against
loss.
Marshall. Lost that game. So, rough week for the Big
But
Ten.
Indiana beat Southern Illinois. That was
Yeah,
a
let's
good
hear
one.
it for the Hoosiers. We'll be back in just a minute. We're going to have our Spartan Sparring segment looking ahead to the Oregon game up next.
When we're coming to your city, and if you want a little bang in your yin yang, come along.
Welcome back. It is Press Pass All-Stars here on Fox 47. There you see a little promo for ESPN Game Day. Goodyear Blimp coming in, Joe. Going to be quite the event under the lights at Spartan Stadium. Tom Crawford, you've been around here since the mid-50s.
Yes.
Right?
I followed Michigan State since '64.
God, you're obsessed.
I'm obsessed with Michigan State. I know
Have
all
you
about
seen a bigger non-conference game in East Lansing other than the 10-10 tie on November 1966?
not a bigger non-conference game. I mean, this is a lot of hype. I mean, this is like, back in '97 and '99 before the Michigan State games, there was a lot of hype. But this one blows away that, and it does rival 1966 because the media was so much more extensive now. Back in it was on ABC. Chris Schenkel, Bud Wilkinson. There was no Sports Center. This blows everything away from that era.
There was a 63 game with Michigan State and Southern Cal. They had a couple of games where, you get a big name team in. Southern Cal came in again in 87, but not the rankings like this, Joe. Not the anticipation of this game, what it might mean.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's been 49 years since two top 10 teams played in this stadium, which is amazing. But, the 99 Michigan State game was 3 versus 11. They've been close a couple times. So you've got that. You've got the playoff situation. I think that makes a game like this bigger, the fact that we know there's a 4-team playoff, and the fact they played last year. And, I think Michigan State acquitted itself very well for a lot of that game, then got blown away late, and obviously there's the revenge factor too.
Rico, despite the gray hair, you weren't born the last time two top 10 teams played in Spartan Stadium.
No, I listen to Tom reminisce and talk about people I have no idea who he's talking about. So, no, this is going to be big, especially if they could get it where the fans stripe the stadium and they're doing it big. And this is it. This is your first of 2 big tests for Michigan State. Oregon at home under the lights. You have to handle your business if you want to be considered for the playoffs.
Joe, we saw last year these teams met. Michigan State was in great shape for the first half. Wound up losing by 19 points, gave up 28 in a row. What's different about the 2015 Ducks? Vernon Adams in place of Marcus Mariota.
Yeah, well, Vernon Adams is very good. He's not Marcus Mariota. Okay, I think he's not a speed burner guy, but he moves around well. He's accurate. He doesn't have a big arm. I mean, he's going to make plays and score points in this game. He's not Mariota. The running back Royce Freeman is fantastic as a sophomore. Yes. But defensively, a guy who really hurt Michigan State last year, Eric Armstead, not there anymore. And I think you saw with this Oregon defense, as much as people are worried about Michigan State, 42 points at home to Eastern Washington, problems all over the field.
Absolutely.
They lost 3 key members at secondary, and you saw it in the opener. So they've got a lot of work to do.
And I think if you're Michigan State, you need to just follow the blueprint that you did in the first half of last game and what Ohio State did in the championship game. Run the ball, control both offensive and defensive line, and kind of get Oregon out of rhythm. That's because even Dave Warner was saying he kind of panicked in the second half of that Oregon game, and he started playing their game. You can't play Oregon's game with them. If you're Michigan State, you have to stay disciplined and run the ball. And whenever you throw it on a 3rd and 5, your receivers have to catch it. You got to extend the drives, 7-8-minute drives. That's how you beat Oregon.
Tom Crawford, the Ohio State-Michigan State game last year, 49-37, 86 points in that shootout. Oh. Is it possible It could have more than that
This is
in this
crazy.
game
Can you
Saturday
imagine
night.
what the over-under is going to be in this? Yeah, but I think Michigan State's defense will shore up from the Western game, tackle better. You're going to have to tackle in space if you're
Yes.
Michigan State. And if they go default back to missed tackles, then we are going to have like a 45-42, or maybe that's even being conservative.
Yeah, your linebackers are going to have to tackle and make the tackles, whether it's Max Buller, Reschke, or Harris.
And they have to cover,
They
too.
whiffed on a lot of tackles.
Right.
Yeah.
What else has to happen, Joe, for Michigan State to win this game, and is that going to happen?
Well, you know what? I agree with Rico on control the ball, run the ball. But you know what? Oregon with that 3-4 sometimes makes it a little bit tricky. I think you've got to be unpredictable and you got to throw it. You got to get Connor Cook in a rhythm early, and his receivers have to be better. Aaron Burbridge was very good the other night. Guys like McGarrett Kings, AJ Troop, they dropped perfect passes that could have been big plays in that game. They need the
McGarrett King
receivers
seemed
to play.
disinterested at some point in that game. He was just, when he lined up in the wrong formation, it's like he just was bored. But you're right. Troop hit him right in the 1 and the 9. He dropped a couple passes. Though I was excited to see Arnett. Maybe they should throw more
That's
to
a
him.
good
Well,
grab for
they
him.
might
Might.
need to.
I think Michigan State's going to score at least 35 points, maybe in the 40s
more
in
than
this
that.
game. The question is, can they avoid the blown assignments that cost them last year? And it seemed like whenever Oregon got a big play, Michigan State's guys got lost.
And that's where last year should help Michigan State. I also think Bulla and Harris pre-snap better right now than Tawan Jones was going into this game a year ago. They should be better in those ways. But guys like R.J. Williamson, Darian Harris, they have to tackle in space. That's not easy against Oregon.
I know this is going to be unpopular. I just don't think you can have Darian Harris out there. It's just a liability.
But who
Had
do
a
you
couple
put out
of
there?
really good tackles
I
against
put
the run.
Chris Fry. I put somebody
Why don't you
else.
throw in kick coverage, too, as part of the
Kick
equation?
coverage is a concern, and they can't have a blocked punt. There will be a lot of ways that Oregon's going to test this Michigan State team. Jake Hartbarger's going to have good get-offs.
He
They're
was
going to have
great
to cover
in
the
the
kick.
opener.
He
Oh,
was
yeah, he
very
looked
good.
good.
But they're going to have to do a much better job on kick coverage unless they plan on Kevin Cronin kicking it into the seats. We'll be back in just a minute. We're going to talk high school football. Our Lansing's Best segment up next. Welcome back to Press Pass All-Stars here on Fox 47. Time for our Lansing's Best segment, brought to you by the Greater Lansing Sports Authority, bringing thousands of athletes and teams from Mid-Michigan for dozens of tournaments and special events. Hats off to everyone at the GLSA who helps to show just what this area can be. Week 2 of high school football, weather-impaired weekend, Rico, and it was all over the state, the Lower Peninsula, but it really hit some areas hard here. What stood out to you about week 2 of high school football?
Week 2, well, at least down in the Detroit area, is the good teams remain good. I mean, it's quite a difference. Either you're really good or you're okay. And the teams that are supposed to win went out there, they handle business, and it sets up for like the big matchups, like the King versus Cass matchup or the De La Salle versus Brother Rice matchup. Those are coming up this
Brother
season.
Rice not very good. They might lose more than they win.
A lot better than
They
their
lost
record
a lot.
says.
One team that we think is pretty good, and Okemos certainly got an eyeful of them, Ann Arbor Skyline and Hunter Rison had a touchdown pass, a long touchdown reception, an interception in that game. It was all over the place.
He's really good, Jack. I mean, he's going to be one of the top players in the state, and Michigan State's going to have to fight hard to keep other teams away from him. It helps that his last name is Rison, and his father played here, and I think that's going to be the deciding factor. But the Alabamas are already asking for him. They want him to come down there, and if you're MSU, you're going to have to work hard. He's a really good player. He's got his father's swag, and he's got his father's talent.
Joe, can you imagine any high school player having a better night than Pewamo Westphalia's Jared Smith? Now, he was the best player in Ionia County a year ago, but carried the ball 9 times, 6 touchdowns, averaged more than 30 yards a carry, didn't play most of the second half.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I will throw a name at you, and one of my favorite names in Mid-Michigan football, Quan Crockett, Weberville, 281 rushing
Whoa,
yards.
very nice.
Great name, great game. Stockbridge, huge passing numbers too this weekend. So a lot of individual performers doing really well.
Stockbridge, bad team to play if you're the opposing defensive coordinator. They can put 50 up in a hurry. Tom Crawford, you were here in studio with us Thursday night, Friday night, and Friday night we were all in Kalamazoo. But Thursday night this week, we had all of the high school games, and seeing some of the shutouts, it seemed like every other game was a shutout, a lot of blowouts.
Yeah, a lot of blowouts, and I think there's a couple teams that are at critical passages right now as far as getting in the playoffs. One of them, Sexton, who Played Renaissance the first week, and then Granville, 2 really good teams. And Dan Bogan's got a nice club. Got a sophomore quarterback, and he's starting to get better. So the third week when you are 0-2 is really critical. And Sexton's in that category. East Lansing's in that category. They had a bad loss at St. John's. Having a game slip away. And they played very good against East Kentwood. Lost that one, so they got to beat Jay High. Jackson's coming to town. They got to get that win. So critical time now for the 0-2s to make sure they get that playoff.
How about Hazlitt?
Hazlitt.
Fine on Hazlitt.
Very nice.
Start for them. Charlie Atlewski and
Defense
company.
has been terrific. They've given up 12 points in 2 games. But going back to that CAAC Blue, Tom, other than Grand Ledge, another very impressive outing for Matt Bird's team, you've got Everett. They've got a couple losses.
Yeah.
Okemos has gotten it handed to him twice.
You're right. I forgot about
Eaton
that.
Rapids. You go down through this list, and there are a lot of losses in this division.
Yeah, it is. It's unfortunate, and there's turnover every year. I mean, every school goes through this one bad class. I mean, Sexton right now does not have a freshman team, so they'll have that issue in a few years. It seems like high school football is victimized by in some of these B and C class size schools. It's hard to get players. It's not like the old days where you had 70 kids marching out on varsity.
And there are some teams that look terrific so far. They look like they are indeed going to be there all the way.
Mason is really good.
Mason is really good. Pewamo Westphalia is really good. Grand Ledge looks really good.
I mean, Eaton Rapid 21-6, is that still kind of impressive to hang with what we think may be a great
Mike
Mason
Smith.
team?
Yeah.
Tom, you talk about now up here in Lansing, are a lot of schools consolidating because now in the Metro Detroit area, you got a lot of schools that are coming together.
No,
and now like
They're
Southfield
not,
and Southfield
they
Lathrop will
should.
become one next year.
That might be a consideration.
Might be an idea in Lansing,
yeah,
but
in
it hasn't
Lansing,
been
it's
so
something
far.
that you might have to do. I mean, when you have schools that don't have sub-varsity, I mean, that hurts. You got ninth graders, playing on the varsity because there's no sub-varsities. There's a couple situations like that. It's not good.
Rico, what about Detroit Community? Do you know anything about that program? All we know is that Lansing Catholic absolutely loved
was
them.
bad.
They probably could have won by 100.
It was 33-0 at the end of the first
We
quarter.
knew when Jim Ahern said after week 1, we won, but we didn't
It's
play
a
very
basketball
well.
school,
we said,
right,
this
Rico?
is going to be
Detroit
really tough
Community?
for Lansing.
You need to
It's-
answer for Detroit Community,
Yes,
Rico.
come on.
It's an
Detroit.
academic school. That's it's an academic school. It's new, and they don't have any players. And all the top players in Detroit are either going to East English Village, Cass Tech, or King. So.
Well, for this academic school, they did learn one thing Thursday night. Never schedule Lansing Catholic again if they can help it.
When their
That's
coach
what they
wasn't
need to
happy
do.
the way the team played the week before is another thing.
We will be back in just a couple of minutes, and we're going to have our Jumbo Opinions segment brought to you by Jumbo, my favorite new restaurant in Lansing, 2010 West Saginaw. Everyone's going to have a chance. 45 uninterrupted seconds. We'll be back with that and much, much more coming up. It's Press Pass All-Stars here on Fox 47. Welcome back to Press Pass All-Stars here on Fox 47. It's time for Jumbo Opinions, brought to you by Jumbo, my new favorite restaurant in 2015, home of the Jumbo and Jack Fantasy Football League. You can visit Louisiana or just head to Jumbo, stop and see Keith, Erica, and Bubba. Mention this show and get 10% off your bill. And remember, we'll talk fantasy football with Keith Havard and Rico Beard every Thursday at 4:05 on The Drive. All right, gentlemen. It's time for your rants and raves, 45 uninterrupted seconds. Time for our Jumbo Opinions. Tom Crawford, better make it spicy.
Well, it's a serious thing. I mean, Muskegon Catholic Central is playing Muskegon Heights on Friday night, and they get a call from the Muskegon police saying, you don't want to go to Muskegon Heights. There's been a shooting. Someone's been killed right near the stadium. They thought in best interest they not go to the game. So they don't go to the game, and Muskegon Heights wants to have the game be a forfeit as opposed to just cancel the game, even though Muskegon Catholic, we're concerned about their fans. Sad part about that is just call it a canceled game. Don't try to grab a win out of an awkward situation like that, a ridiculous situation where gunfire is now controlling high school athletics. This whole thing, if someone's getting killed every week in the news, I'm getting tired of it. And when it hits home, the sanctity of high school football, it really irks me beyond words.
How did they resolve this? Did they play the game?
No, they didn't play
No
the game.
game.
Yeah, so now there's going to be some type of arbitration with Michigan High School Athletic Association if it's going to be a forfeit or if it's going to be just a
Reschedule.
cancellation. Because it affects your playoffs. That's a loss to Catholic Central or Muskegon Catholic if they have to forfeit it.
Joe Rexrode, your Jumbo Opinion is?
Gosh, I have to follow that serious stuff
Yeah,
up.
sorry.
Well, I'm sorry, Michigan State fans, but Friday night's game against Western Michigan proves that the Spartans really have no chance against the Oregon Ducks. Sorry, Oregon fans, but Saturday night's game against Eastern Washington proves that the Oregon Ducks have no chance against Michigan State. The bottom line is every game is different. Every matchup is different. Yes, both defenses looked bad at times, terrible at times, but this is one night. Michigan State is going to miss Ed Davis, but this is going to be about which quarterback plays better, I believe. That's what it's going to come down to. And then you're going to find out either Michigan State is going to be a team in the top 5, maybe hurtling toward a 1-2 matchup, or it's going to drop off the map nationally.
You like Connor Cook in that matchup, quarterbacks?
It's too early. I don't know.
Too early to tell. You have to tune in. and
Sunday night.
You'll catch it
God's
later.
sakes.
All right, Rico Beard, your jumbo opinion is?
My jumbo opinion is very similar to what Joe said. I really hate the fact that before every season, the media and the prognostications and the magazines tell you which teams are going to be great, who's coaching, who's doing this, and it's going to be this great thing. You know, we found out after week 1 that Michigan's still Michigan. Penn State's not that great. Northwestern is better than Stanford. A lot of things happen. How about we just let the games play out? We just watch it. We don't come in with the hype. We don't have buses. We don't do all of this stuff. We just let the teams play because that's what we want to see. You're being told this team's better than that team until they play. And then you got to explain, well, why did Stanford lose? They were ranked number 21. How could they lose to Northwestern? How did BYU throw this Hail Mary against Nebraska? How?
That's why they play the game, right?
Yeah.
Well, why don't you wait 2, 3 weeks and 4 weeks before you make that decision?
I would love that. I would love for the polls not to come out until week 7.
I want to
Mid-October.
hear Jack's jumbo opinion.
My
please.
jumbo opinion now, I very much like Rico, so I'm going to go a different direction. I'm going to say that they are playing competitive athletics in the city of Detroit, just not at Detroit Community. Obviously, they're not playing much at Comerica Park these days either. Detroit Tigers, now that Jose Iglesias has the chip fracture in his finger, even less reason to watch this team. You can just put them out of their mercy. If they had a mercy rule, it would be very nice. But the Detroit Lions are going to be there in a home game, looking forward to against the Denver Broncos in a couple of weeks. The question is, will they be 0-2 by then? We'll see. But it's worth looking forward to. There is something going on in the city of Detroit besides our field. All right. We will be back in just a minute, and we are going to have our Cool and Smooth segment brought to you by Culver's with all of our weekly honors coming up next. Welcome back to Press Pass All-Stars on Fox 47. It's time for our Cool and Smooth segment, brought to you by a new sponsor, the 4 Culver's locations in mid-Michigan. Since 1984, Culver's been delighting guests one meal at a time with their scrumptious butter burgers and premium frozen custard. That's Culver's. Welcome to Delicious. Gentlemen, who has been as smooth and cool as a Culver's Mint Explosion? Joe Rexrode, you're up first with our play of the week.
You know, I was gonna come with an obscure.
This is so easy, right?
Yeah, I was gonna come with like an obscure play from the Michigan State game, like Malik McDowell's sack, where he looked like he ran a 4-2. But I've got to go with the BYU Hail Mary. You know, you think about Nebraska. This happened to them against Northwestern just a couple years ago. Ruined what I think would have been a great debut for Mike Riley, because that would have been a really nice quality win. But what an incredible play. Celebration, and then obviously a tough.
Did Nebraska allow this to happen?
Well, yeah, you have whether you rush 3 or not.
You got 5 guys in
You
the
cannot
back
let
of
a
the
guy
end
like
zone.
that post up. You've got to have someone.
He was a drag route. He was a delay. That was a delayed route.
He
from
came
the
all
other
the way
side
across the field.
From
But
across
you
the
got
other side.
5 guys
But
in the back of the
you
end
gotta
zone.
look.
Just
And they
sitting
sit
there.
there, stand, and look at each other.
Yeah.
That's what happens
thought
when you
you
don't
had
pressure
it.
That's
the
why he
quarterback.
put one guy up there who's not doing anything. Rush him.
All right, Rico, what about our game of the week?
You know what? Joe kind of stole a little bit of the thunder, so I'm going to go Cats. How about that?
All right.
The Northwestern Wildcats upsetting Stanford. I love this because Northwestern's that team that every year you root for. You want to see them in the bowl game. They struggle. They're always on that, they need that 6th or 7th win. This could be a game that could catapult them later on in the year. This is a quality victory. This is like when Indiana defeated
Missouri
last year.
Hey.
Yes, thank you, Joe.
That's it.
I think that the same here is knocking off Stanford. A lot of people had Stanford going far. Heck,
That's
Desmond
what people
Howard
them in the playoffs.
Desmond Howard had him in the playoffs, and he was like, "Oh, they're going to be good." So kudos, go Cats.
You know who Desmond had in the playoffs too as his number 1 team? Michigan State.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I also have to give a shout out to the Temple Owls. The only good thing that's happened to Bill Cosby in the last 5 years is the win over Penn State, 27 unanswered points. All right, Tom Crawford, what about our team of the week?
Well, we need to do our homework maybe of what which you're going to take this thing, I'm going to take this
No,
thing.
you just go through.
Did I steal yours?
I was going to go Northwestern as a
Yes!
but I'm not going to do it because you took it. You
stole
know
it.
what? I'm going with IU.
You know
the
why?
Hoosiers,
Because I
they
hate you,
beat the
Tom.
Salukis of SIU. Hey, they're on the road for their first bowl appearance since 2007, man. I am all about the Hoosiers. Look out.
A
not bigger
resounding 1-point victory, stopping a 2-point
The way
conversion.
they played that 2-point conversion, my God, that was clutch.
Still
and all
not
one-
better than Northwestern Wildcats.
Tom Crawford and all 162 fans of Indiana football. They're all in.
Oh, Memorial Stadium.
I have to go with our player of the week and go back to that game because Tanner Mangum, what a story. Just back from his LDS mission, 2 years in Chile, and he threw the football a couple of times. Now he gets in, and maybe a Heisman candidate is down for the season with Liz Frank injury. He comes in, leads the team. He looks so cool, so poised. Don't know whether he's going to be able to do this the rest of the year. They've got Boise State coming up. They've got Michigan coming up.
UCLA.
Interesting to
BYU,
see
most
what
of the
happens
players
with
are
that.
about 35 years old, so they're all very mature.
I
guys.
wonder if after the game, do they go and hold their girlfriend's hands and drink orange juice?
They were 35 years old when they came to BYU. They're about
exactly.
60 after that game because you saw the look on the sidelines and the BYU people. It was even funnier than the look on the Nebraska sidelines.
Oh,
And then one guy was there, and I swear to God, he dropped to his knees and the tears started coming down.
Did.
Right
Well,
after
they
that.
hadn't lost an opening game in 29 games.
Well, they probably finally played.
It would have been
somebody.
30 in a row.
Yeah, it would
They
have
had
been 30
won
in a
that.
row.
And
So
playing
imagine
UAB or-
the streak ended with them. So there's a lot of Nebraska people. That team's going to always be remembered as you lost the streak.
I think that team could be pretty good too. Watching them, it's an opener.
Nebraska,
but I think
or-
they could. I think Nebraska could be pretty solid this year.
They're still
I still
inconsistent.
think that's going to be a tough game. for
BYU's a
Michigan
good
State.
team.
No, they are, but they're great, and then they just can't play and get out of their own way.
All right, we want to thank all of our panelists tonight. Joe Rexrode covers Michigan State for the Detroit Free Press, and he is our Monday host on The Drive with Jack. And we're live tomorrow. Tom Crawford's going to be sitting in, Tom. I think the shows here on
Yes,
Team
it's
92.1 are all live tomorrow. Looking forward to
Yeah,
that.
looking forward to
Also
that.
want to thank Rico Beard, the Ryan and Rico Show, Detroit Sports 105.1 FM. We'll be back tomorrow. You can catch us on 92.1.